We are going to be diving into the current rendering landscape. We're going to be chatting about what's changing, what leading firms like Andy and his team at KPF are doing. And then we're even going to get a live look and a bit of a tutorial into D5 specifically and how it's being used with you and your team. But for those of you that don't know, my name is Tyler Sumala. I am the creator of Growth Detect. It's a weekly newsletter with about 17,000 architects, usually architecture leaders, where I share how to, win the projects that you want with clients that you love for fees that you deserve. That is the main thing. We talk about, sales and marketing strategies to really help you get the ball moving. And excited that you're here. We partner with amazing companies like, D5 and Andy to get you great leaders and great experts to come in here and share what is happening in the industry. But Andy, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're cooking up.
Definitely. Hey, everybody. My name is Andy Crisoforo. I am the Senior Applied Technology Specialist at KPF. Basically, I lead the visualization and AI efforts there. And then some of you might know me from my YouTube persona, where I just cover D5 render and AI, basically on a weekly basis, 1 to 3 videos a week, D5 tutorials, and then some random AI platforms so everyone can kind of stay up to date because it is crazy. So yeah, the past couple of years I've been at KPF leading, all this R&D efforts, and it's been really interesting seeing the new players like enter the space and then figuring out how to teach all the designers like this new information. We've got 600 people at the firm, so it's I've been using YouTube to also like scale my onboardings. So the idea is like I can record a tutorial. I know this team is having that issue. Go watch that video. There you go.
That's so you heard it from Andy, leading it at KPF. Just go watch Andy's YouTube videos. That is the scaling things. If you want your own onboarding, if you want to steal what he's doing, just go watch his YouTube videos.
Exactly. Don't hold anything back there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about the traditional rendering workflow challenges that, in your experience, that probably most people here are currently dealing with.
Yeah, so there's basically like 2 sides of it. There's the in-house renderings, and then there's the outsourcing expense. So we'll start with outsourcing. So generally speaking, at KPF, what we do is for any like super large milestone, deadlines or projects, we'd usually outsource it. But what was happening was, we'd look at the expense at the end of the year, and we're just talking about an insane amount of money, and we're like, oh my God, why is this costing so much? Like it's eating into our project budgets. We're asking for all these renderings, and they're costing, $2, $3, $4, $5 a pop. I mean, that adds up. So when I kind of joined KPF and I got into this role to lead visualization, the question was, well, how do we raise our in-house standards so we don't need to constantly outsource? Because with outsourcing, obviously love supporting ArcViz firms, but there is a cost there, right? Then there's the communication cost because you need to basically package everything together, right? You got to get your Rhino files, your Revit files, all your inspiration, your Miro boards, send it over, wait a week or 2. If it's animations, it's even longer. And then there's this kind of feedback loop. Okay, this looks good, but that doesn't look good. Oh, we have the design option. And it just doesn't move at the same pace as the day-to-day within the firm. I mean, we are talking about generating dozens of options all the time. We need results fast. So once I kind of heard all that from leadership and the teams, I was like, okay, well, what can we do to kind of improve our internal quality? So at the time, KPF kind of went through the V-Ray stage like 15, 20 years ago, then Enscape. And then we kind of need something with like a little bit more juice, more power, more functionality. And that's kind of where D5 entered the picture for us. And so we've been, pretty good about migrating people over because it's just like right out of the box, the results are beautiful. I mean, year over year, we're cutting down our external rendering expense by like 30 to 50%. Like it is crazy what these designers are able to do with just like a simple 30-minute onboarding. They run with it. They all have some sort of experience with real-time rendering. So it's not like a brand new thing. They know what materials are, what lighting is. So they're able to get in there and just like go with it. And that's been the really like inspiring thing that, designers who are not traditional like ArcViz artists are able to generate like beautiful renderings that rival the renderings we were getting outsourced, all in-house.
What for you was like, because you mentioned, there's kind of two pieces. It's like outsourcing, which you're right. There's so many hidden, I mean, it's great how much time it saves, but there's a lot of hidden costs of like packaging those things together. I actually remember spending, entire afternoons, so like pulling together the resources so that we can hand it off to the renderers so that they could, so that they could do that. But what about on the, like on the in-house, you kind of mentioned, hey, everyone's familiar with this, right? First it was V-Ray, and then it was
Right.
Enscape, and then then there was these different things. But what are the challenges on like the in-house team that you've seen, at least with the traditional models that are existing today?
Yeah. So with the in-house teams, it's like, if we need to create, a render, well, the reality is like we create 3D files regardless, like
Yeah.
whether or not we outsource it. But the trouble we always saw was like, how do you get all these people on board, to work together in the same file, have that skill set? So like just the learning process was probably the hardest part. Just, everyone's got different varying scales of skills. Like how do you normalize that? And collaborate. And like luckily with D5, they have like that Teams multi-editor functionality. So just like a Revit project where you've got work sessions, everyone's working together and seeing each other's work. And that was actually like, I feel like the moment that clicked within the firm, like, oh my God, I'm no longer the designated visualization person on my team. I can actually offload this work to my teammates and they can help contribute. And that was super important because architecture is collaborative. You don't want to be like the person locked out of the Viz file. Like you want to see this thing grow. You're working on, the materials and lighting and everything together. So I feel like it brought collaboration back, but I felt like that was the hardest thing that we didn't have before. It just felt like, oh, you're good at visuals, you now do this. And
That's
like
right.
people don't want
Yeah.
to be shoehorned into that. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Like some people
Yes.
love it, of course, but you don't want to be that guy every single time. You want to mix it up.
Yeah, and it's always, it's usually the new graduates, like they come in, they're naturally very good
Exactly.
at visualization, and then they get to a point where they actually don't do, architecture, and they just do visualization, and that's, I mean, it's good for the firm to a certain extent, but it's also like we're not developing talent in the best way. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, that's true. Well, drop into the chat, people. Like, let us know what you and the team currently use. I mean, is it just Photoshop? Are we using V-Ray? Are we using Enscape? We got D5 users in here. Let us know what tools you're typically using today. And then while we're talking about that, we were chatting about this a little bit at the beginning. Yeah, Rhino Enscape. That's what I used back in the day as well. And we were chatting about this at the beginning, right? But so many AI tools, right? So many things happening along the way. But these trending AI tools, things like Nano Banana, that are hitting not just the AAC industry, but really everything. What's
Right.
your impression on these tools?
Yeah. So at first glance, they're pretty much like they're incredible. I mean, just like a simple prompt and you get beautiful images. I think the issue that a lot of people don't realize, if you start using these in production, you notice how difficult it is to actually get what you want. And instead of you like doing work or production, all that, you actually become a curator. So you'll generate 100 different images using AI. And there's like one image that's like kind of good. It's like 70, 80% there, but then you need to like collage it with another one that's got that extra 20, 30% that you didn't have. So on paper, principles and leadership is like, oh yeah, AI, one click, easy to go. But that's not the reality. What we're saying is like it does feel like a slot machine. Like you're sitting there, generate, 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 tweak the prompt, generate, tweak the prompt, generate, and you could just be doing that for a while. And there's definitely been some times where some people rely a little bit too much on AI and they just blow like 2 days, and you're like, well, you could have just modeled this thing and done it in D5. So, so that part's interesting that
Yeah.
it's like that. I think that will get better over time. But the other issue that I see is like if we stop making 3D models, which I hope we never do, because I think it's core to the architectural process, there's no way to have like consistency between all your different elevations. So it's like you've got your front elevation dialed in, you've got this material palette, this is, the design. Once you say, hey, show me the rear, show me the left, it just kind of falls apart. And I think that's one thing, that's what I'm banking on AI never being able to do. And like, maybe 10 years down the line, someone takes that clip and is like, Andy, you were wrong. But I think I just think you need that substrate. You need that 3D model. That way you can plug that in as your structure image. That way you could riff off of that. because without that, it's making all this stuff up. I mean, just the nature of like diffusion in AI, it's basically fuzz. It's all fuzz, it's blurred, and then it just kind of refines over time. Kind of like the old V-Ray bucket
I was gonna
thing.
say, yeah, that reminds me of it used to take 24 hours to do it, but yeah, it was it
Yeah.
was the same. It was the same process. I mean, it's kind of. I think what you're talking about is no matter what, right? You need a source, a central source of truth. And that's what architects need to be in control of, which right now is still the 3D model, right? Like you are in control of that central source of truth. And the second that we kind of see that is probably where problems are going to exist. Or if there is no source, I mean, I don't, like you said, there basically isn't a source of truth. Like if you're just
Exactly,
using
exactly.
it from a,
Yeah, and then with documentation and everything, I see a lot of people in the chat using Revit. Like you need that 3D model, like whether it starts in Rhino and then you interop it into Revit, like you need that. At the end of the day, we are building buildings for the most part, like
right.
that's the idea. So we
Yeah.
need something. We can't just make pretty pictures all day because that's just like one small piece of the whole, life cycle of a project. So it's like it's fun to definitely come up with variations and ideas. Like I use it as I call it like curated Pinterest. It's like, hey, this is like the structure image. This is my prompt specific to the program of our project. Riff off of that instead of me just like going on Google Images and Pinterest. I'm getting something more specific, and I think that's where it's really exciting because there's so many times where I drop something in and then something unexpected happens, and I'm like, that's something I could branch off of, and that's something I probably wouldn't have thought of without that.
It's funny you say that because it feels so similar to back in the day when we were building models. I mean, I think still some firms do
Right.
this, but when you're going through whether you're building a conceptual model or something else, and a mistake happens, right? And then
Right.
it's like it's like the artist, the art behind architecture. You're like, actually, maybe that's okay, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
you run with it. And so you can do the same thing with AI, especially because I mean it's glitching, it's hallucinating in these different areas, and there's opportunity with that. So it's kind of funny to think about that also. Outside of being something that can save you time, it's also a source of inspiration in some ways too. Uh,
Exactly, exactly. It makes me think of back in college, we'd have this one professor who's just famous for taking your foam core model and then just flipping it upside down. And they'd be like,
yes.
"Why don't you do this?" And you'd be like, "Oh wow, that's like a whole different perspective that I've never seen before." And that's kind of how I feel with like Nano Banana and all these AI tools. Like I now have my professor back here giving me, ideas. So it's great for that, especially like in the world of architecture, we know like our budgets are shrinking, deadlines are tightening. Like we don't have the same amount of time for our typical concept or schematic design phase. That's just getting crunched. So the idea of using AI to do more in less time, like that's super enticing. I think the big thing architects need to remember is like it shouldn't do all the designing because I feel like once we give designing away to AI, it's like what are we doing anymore? What's the point of giving away the fun thing? So I think using it as a tool for inspiration to, see a new gesture, just test something, rapid prototype it. That's where I think like the future of this is going.
Yeah. So it's great at, to your point, if you use it correctly, right? It can be really
Right.
great at saving time, at helping you iterate faster, at helping you kind of get to, let's say, like the optimized solution quicker. So when done correctly, arguably, not only do you get a better outcome for the client, but you also are able to do it quicker, right? If you're doing it
Exactly.
well. But there's also shortcomings to AI too, right? Like it's, I mean, I assume it has difficulty with different geometries. Definitely on the video side, it seems like there's some limitations too.
Yeah. So what we see a lot is like if there's anything kind of far away, that's when things get really like blurry and distorted and you just lose your forms. So that's always an issue. So you always want to make sure, you're taking these images, these renderings close up on top of your 3D model, or then it gets distorted. There's so many tools out there that, promise, 100% structure retention, but I just think it's impossible to get 100%. I think
Yeah.
90 to 95 is the realm we'll live in. But what I've learned from doing so many onboardings and helping teams out is that 5 to 10% deviation is actually a huge issue for them. So it's crazy because you've got all this potential of generating possibilities, but then on the other side, it could actually damage the look of your project if it's not 100%. And sometimes people don't even want to deal with that. They're like, no, it's got to be this, and that's kind of where the whole like pixel perfect realm of rendering traditionally still has a lot of value.
Yeah. We are perfectionists at heart.
Exactly,
Every
exactly. That's what
every
it comes down
architect
to.
is a perfectionist at heart. By the way, it's good to see a mix of what everyone's using. I'm seeing a lot of like Enscape, Twinmotion, SketchUp. I think you can keep these in mind. I'm sure Andy, like when you pull up in D5 and talk about the differences that you've experienced with it, but which we're going to do in a little bit. But now that you've kind of talked about it, hey, there's it can get you to a certain point. For some teams, that's a challenge. For others, there's ways to move beyond it. What is like, a firm like yours, like, at KPF and these other leading firms, like, what does that balance look like between, quality and efficiency with AI tools and with rendering tools?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the phase of the project or where the project is or what it is. Like what we've been able to do, which I've been super proud of our teams for doing, is like anything competition wise, because competitions are kind of in this weird area. Either you get reimbursed or you don't, or you get a partial reimbursement. And it's like for the ones where we don't get paid anything and we just need to do like a week study, we've had teams not even open up Rhino or Revit and they just generate things in all in AI, whether it's like Midjourney or Nano Banana, just like from scratch. And they're like, hey, this is a sketch of a master plan. This is the vignette of like this area, vignette of that area. And so instead of you going there and 3D modeling every single area because you're not getting paid for it, you're actually able to leverage AI to speed that whole process up. And then once, you get the project and we've got the budget and we move into like SD and so on, that's kind of where the 3D model appears, and that's where the traditional rendering can happen. But I do like to use a mix of AI just to help inform some of the rendering and some of the designs and the aesthetics. Because sometimes if you don't know what you're doing in a rendering tool, you just like waste too much time tweaking things. Like imagine in the old days of like V-Ray, you don't know what you're doing. You're just sitting there tweaking things, and like you don't know what the final outcome will be. I think using AI to say like, hey, I want like a dramatic sunset. I'm curious what that looks like without me going into the whole tweaking effort. Um, 10 seconds versus like 10 minutes, and that adds up. All these decisions. So I think that's where it's really nice.
That's so true. Yeah, like switching the environment, right? Or the context around whatever it is that you're rendering used to be some kind of mix between, I mean, usually with like Photoshop, sometimes even with Enscape, and you can make those changes, but it was like, you have to it's more than just like the background itself, right? It's the lighting on it and where these other things are coming from. And so there's a lot of things to change. But now you're saying you can do, I mean, with AI tools and with these different things, you're able to do this all at once. And it doesn't take that additional 10 minutes, which also means you can iterate faster. You can kind of get to the result faster too.
Exactly, exactly. Because like it's very dangerous living in the world of tweaking, especially if you got like nobody over your shoulder saying like, "Hey, we gotta like punt." Like you could just be sitting there and like, "Oh, should I make the HDRI this bright or less bright? Should I play with my contrast?" And it's just like, "Oh my God!" Like, what is the end goal here? So yeah, it's incredible. I've got a bunch of examples I can share once we get into the demo area,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just something I don't think you should like discredit. Like I do think AI is everywhere. It's not going to go away. It's not just like a trend or, a bubble and it's going to pop and go away. Like it's here to stay for good or bad. You got to be aware of this stuff. It's just like, imagine back, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, you're just using CAD. Times were simple. And this new 3D thing comes out called, Rhino or Revit or SketchUp. Like you need to learn that new, evolution of the profession. Like it's good to add that to your skill set. So if there's like any students or juniors, like be aware of this stuff because some firms might not have the R&D budget and like you could be the cool kid on the block saying, "Hey, I've got this awesome AI tool. I think it could actually save us a lot of time and money." So that's what it comes down to. Like what is the value you bring to the firm, like or your client. So I think thinking of it that is like a good fresh perspective for people.
I like that. I like that framing around, I mean, basically this idea that there's so much more value to be gained than there is to be lost.
Mm,
Right. And I think that's like, we've got to get that fear out of our head as architects in the industry is like that it's taking something away. And it's not really, it's here to help you, improve your workflows. It's here to help you spend more time on the things that matter most. And ultimately, like you're saying, like it's here to help you get a better outcome. at the end of the
Right.
day for your clients, and get a better product essentially. And so yeah, there's so much to be gained from spending a little bit of time. And I feel like that learning curve, right, is only
Mhm.
getting smaller, right?
Right.
It's getting smaller and shorter as the tools continue to advance. So for people that, I mean, I feel like architects, maybe more than any other profession, we use so many different tools, and we have used so many different tools, that it's relatively easy for us to pick up and jump into something. But especially when it comes to, rendering workflows and rendering tools, like those those learning curve windows they're just getting shorter, right? And it becomes so much easier to pick up.
Yeah, and what's interesting about when you compare, the architect's tool set versus like AI, let's take Rhino, Revit, whatever, things with buttons, right?
Yeah.
There are thousands of buttons. You have to become a pro of the user interface. You need to understand what the commands are, what each tool does, and then the sequence. So there's a lot there. And then they go and change the UI, and it's a nightmare. But now when you think of like prompting and what that is, it's actually just like an English riddle. And I've noticed, if you're not a native English speaker, it's actually quite difficult to like formulate your thoughts because
Mm.
it's just English. You're just writing sentences. And then those that are native speakers actually don't like writing anything. Like I do so many onboardings, and all these prompts, they wind up being like 2 to 5 words. And you're like, well, what are you doing? Like if I were to explain a task to you or a junior, right? And like what my desired output is, I'd probably be talking for like 5 minutes, right? So
Yeah.
you have to take that and plug that into words, because if you would give it a vague prompt, you're going to give, you're going to get a vague output, and it's not going to be useful. You need to really like dial that in with your words. People don't want to use their words. So I find it funny that we're okay pressing 1,000 different buttons, but when it comes to just like typing and expressing ourselves, we're like, oh, this is a little too much for me.
Well, of course, I love this, right? Anyone here that's been following me for long
Right.
enough knows that I'm going to love this, because at the end of the day, somehow it still all comes down to your ability to communicate, right? It's like
Exactly.
this is at the core of everything. How well can you communicate your value? How well can you communicate your ideas? Funny enough, I've actually found that AI kind of solves its own problem with this, right? Like you can give it, like you can go to something like go into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, I want to create a prompt that's going to do this," and give it a simple
Exactly.
those 4 to 5 words, and it's going to generate something that will be more along the lines, and then you can tweak that. And I found that exercise just myself to be a lot more beneficial, because prompt engineering is definitely its own animal, right? And it takes a long time to learn it, but the tools themselves are already good at it in a sense.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
ask.
So like people use that. Like don't just put your basic prompt in and call it a
Yep.
day. And you're like, oh, this AI sucks because it didn't give me what I wanted.
Yeah.
The problem might be you. It's like
Yeah. I was telling Andy, actually, I was telling you that I had just jumped in and started playing around with Nano Banana um, last week. And I didn't tell you this part, which is that I uploaded it. I did a short script, and I didn't see much change. And I was like, that's not what I wanted. And so I went back to ChatGPT and I was like, hey, this is what I wanted to. And it generated a prompt for me, which then I was able to plug in and get much better results. So it's kind
yeah.
of like it's always like going back and forth for the things that you're looking for. But
Exactly. It's good to iterate. Like it's a
yeah,
person. Like treat it like that. Don't just like
yeah.
take what it gives you. Go back.
It's an assistant, really. I mean, it's an intern. It's
Exactly.
everyone's intern. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Um, so I have this written down, right? Atmospheric match AI with with Nano Banana. What do you know about that? And then I think we'll jump into the demo after that. But it seems like such a
Yeah.
big topic right now.
Yeah. So I'll give you guys a little taste of like my workflow, my back and forth. So let me just share my screen. All right, we'll do. All right, perfect. So right now you should be able to see, we see this? Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
So what I've got here is I'm using a tool called xFigura, xFigura AI. They are fantastic. And the reason we use them is all these different nodes represent workflows. So this guy is the image node, and that's where we get Nano Banana. And what's nice about this is like it's enterprise grade, and we can always switch the model right there. So we basically have the firm all on this right now because it's easier for us to just string together these workflows, because I could upload an image, do some sort of edit to it, upscale, and then generate a video all in one spot. Because as the guy who, deals with the admin of AI accounts. Kind of a pain in the butt to have like a Midjourney subscription, a Runway subscription, a Magnific subscription, and or a Nano Banana Gemini subscription, and it's just like it adds up. Too many logins. Some support SSO, some don't, and it just kind of like falls apart. So we have it all in this like Miro board kind of a workflow. And so what I do here is I can also generate images. So what I'll do is if I've got an idea for like type of like atmosphere or look, I'll literally go in, you see my prompt here, gloomy, cloudy day, generate some images. This is, using Nano Banana, and then I'll go and upscale it. And then let's say I like this cloudy look. Well, I can grab this image. I can actually go and download it and then plug it into D5 using the atmosphere match. So this is a little project I've been working on. And watch this. This is so cool. So I've got this little vignette over here. We've got this beautiful sunny day, right? But how I feel like most designers work, at least at KPF, is they'll find like a really cool image online and they'll be like, hey, Junior, can you make the image look like this? So what D5 has done is they've got this great tool right over here called AI Atmosphere Match. I can go and grab that image I just generated from xFigura or Nano Banana, whatever, and I can plug it in. So let's say I want to grab this cloudy scene, right? If I grab this guy, it's going to go in here, and what it'll do is it'll take the properties, so like the HDRI, the color correction, the overall vibe and feel of it, and apply it to the scene. You can see it's already working. Like it's dynamically adding clouds, making it look gloomy. And this is huge because as a designer, you don't know everything about the rendering software. You have a good idea, the basics, but like to tweak everything, this would take literally 10 minutes for you to do it to a decent degree. So now I've got the look applied to my image. I can control the strength, kind of like an adjustment layer in Photoshop, but it's all based on that image. And this is great because this is literally like how we work. Like a principal will be on Pinterest or a renderer's website and be like, hey, I like the feel of this. Can we do something similar? The junior is like, oh God, I got to find HDRIs. I got to tweak settings. I don't want to do that. So now you're just able to upload that image and then bam, in like a couple seconds, you get this. And that's huge. And they even have their own library. So like I can grab, let's say, I don't know, let's grab this guy right here. This is a little bit sunnier. And it's just a quick way to test. So this is an easy way to iterate. You can obviously plug in images. You can make your own images. And the best part is the settings that we're talking about that are being, applied to the scene, they're all adjustable. So it's not like you're stuck and you're like, oh God, I don't like, where the sun's positioned. You can actually just go in because it uses D5's native, sun and atmosphere settings. So watch this. So let's say I like this, but I don't like the exact sun position. So now I can actually just go right down here where it says sun. I can play with the sunlight intensity, and then I can even play with the rotation of the HDRI and the sun. Look at that. But if I want, right now I think it's a little too bright. I can actually move the HDRI to somewhere here where it's a little bit more blue and then break out the sun. And now I can play with the sun independent of that. So now I kind of have the best of both worlds. And again, this took no time at all. We generated an image, we uploaded it to the AI Atmosphere Match, it applied it, and then we're good to go. And then if I want to get really crazy, I can actually right-click this and create a preset to a team space. And so for those that are using like Enscape and Twinmotion, this silly little button is actually one of the reasons we were like, oh, we got to switch to D5, because now as the Viz specialist, I can actually create all these different presets that the team can go and use. And they live in this D5 studio area. But look at this, all these different presets. So literally junior, day one of working at the firm, they have no idea what's going on. They can go around, they could just double click something that's curated and they can just go, and there you go. So you don't even need to know what all these buttons and settings do. You just look at the pretty picture and you're like, oh, okay, I like the look of that. And there you go. And it's all editable. And you can do this for materials and models. So we have like the KPF material library that our designers are like, hey, we want these types of bricks, these types of metals, these types of glass. So you don't need to even like know how to make a material. This is huge. This is huge for like scaling up the efforts and just making sure everyone's on the same kind of like floor in terms of quality and visuals, which nowhere else we could do this. So this is huge for us.
Such a big baseline because to your point, like I remember it's kind of like each person that does rendering typically has their own library of these
Right.
different things, right? They have their own library of inspiration images. They have their own library of the materials that they like the most. All of which they've spent, 5 to 10 minutes on each small image to make it exactly the way that they want it to, right? So that it adapts properly to the image that they're trying to generate. And so the idea that you can have, kind of to your point, it's like, it sets the floor immediately, right? Like you can't go any lower than this baseline. And the baseline is already really great because of what's here. There's such a good mix between low fidelity and high fidelity here because I think everyone's seen, the ability to like, hey, you make something sunny or cloudy, right? Or you change the weather and you can kind of change the sun. Like these things are common, but the fidelity at which you can do it here is pretty incredible, right? And how you can do it because you get to the end point, right? Because at the end of the day, what's rendering doing? We're generating an image, right? And you get to work directly on the image here and the feel and the vibe and the emotion of that image, which I think is what's really powerful about kind of what you're showing here is like these inspirational images. It's bringing more than just like the qualities of the image. It's really bringing that feeling through. And that at the end of the day is kind of what people resonate with, I think. Obviously beyond the design. So that's amazing. I mean, Paul had a question here. What resolution do you typically produce with these renderings?
Yeah, so this is kind of nice. So depending on what it is, this is like I'll give like harsh truth, harsh reality out there. But like 2K, I feel like people just sleep on in general. This is perfect for email. I mean, at the end of the day, it's what's frustrating is it's like 2025 and like the medium or the delivery of like most of this is like a PDF, right? The PDF is going to compress the image. Someone's going to view it on their phone. Someone's going to view it on a laptop. These are small images. So 2K, totally fine. 4K, if you want that extra fidelity, totally fine too. If we're doing, something for like a construction fence where you need like a large, image or it's like a full scale blow up, big poster, whatever 8K, 16K, that's where that's in. That's where that's super useful. But I find a lot of beginners, they'll just like automatically go straight in and they'll smash 8K just to post that on Instagram. And Instagram goes and compresses it anyways. And you spend, 8 minutes rendering this. It's just like, save you so much time. Just use 2K. And it's perfect. But if you need the extra resolution, you can totally go there. You can also plug in your own, pixel resolution if you want. Like there's a lot of functionality here. So for example, I can plug in different aspect ratios and that's going to help drive the size, of course. So if I do 16:9, there we go, our 1920 by 1080. But if I was feeling a little crazy, I could bump this up to 2600 and it will, adjust the aspect ratio accordingly. So to Paul's question, it's like you can do whatever you want, but my like pro tip is like start with 2K and then edit off of there. No reason to just like start doing your test images on 6K, 8K because it just slows you down.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's also just kind of amazing to see how quickly you can change aspect ratios, how quickly you can change uh, the quality, the resolution of the image as well. Easy to move, easy to change. What are some other? So we've talked about okay, so you have these embedded, what do you call them, like environments that you can quickly pull in. You have the materials library that you can all pull from. So these are all like it's joint, it's accessible to anyone from the company. What are some other things that you've seen make a big difference in the workflows that you have at KPF?
Yeah, so I'll share two things. So the D5 library, like the basic out of the box library, you're getting 2,000 beautiful 4K high res materials. And if anyone watches like my YouTube tutorials, I literally use the D5 materials 90 to 95% of the time because they're great starting points and they have pretty much everything I need. Obviously, if it's a custom material, I need to bring in my own maps and I'll talk about how AI could be leveraged there. But this is amazing. Then there's the model side. So the model side is like insane amount of just character diversity. And I will mention this, but we have such a great relationship with D5. We deal with like a lot of, hotel projects, hospitality, and it's kind of like, hey, we need more people that look like they work at a restaurant or they're hanging out by a pool. And literally within 2 weeks, they were actually able to upload like 200 characters, which is just nuts. Because if you go and buy these like individually, they're like $30 to $50 a pop. So for them to just like turn that around and actually listen, like that's huge. But I will say like the nature, this is huge. And for the longest time, I've noticed that landscape designers would always flock to Lumion because it had like the best vegetation library. That is no longer true. This is like, I mean, this little preview is showing 26 pages, but it keeps on going and going and going, and it's just insane. I mean, we're talking about almost 5,000 different trees. So just having the variety of nature as well as like characters, that's huge. So we love that. That was pretty big. And obviously we can make our own, team library that has all these materials and everything, but just the fact that all this is here without you needing to go and source that 3D model, huge because
So
it's
this
just
is
such
out
a
of the box. You're saying it's just here.
this is out of the box.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
That's cool.
Some of them are, tied to the Pro plan. If you see Pro, it's for the Pro plan. Some of them will move, if they're dynamic assets. Like for example, let's see, character. If you see this kind of like, where is it? Go back here. If you see this little symbol, that means they move. So they're animated. So this is actually one of the reasons why, our Enscape users were getting excited about D5 because they're not like static people. They actually move around. So let me just zoom in a bit and I'm gonna go down to this boardwalk here. All right. So you could see, look at this. Look at this boat. The boat's moving and this dude is moving. These are still assets. So this one's not moving because it's still, but these guys, they're moving. Like if you do an animation, you're gonna see all this. And like that's something we couldn't really do in Enscape. Pretty much you could definitely do it, but we love this. You can generate like character paths. People will walk around, of course. So that's been really nice. Then the other big thing that we love is cesium. And if you guys don't know what that is if you've ever worked on a project and you need a context model, like how difficult it is to find that. Well, cesium is a plugin that basically lets you import different data sets. So what I've done here is I'll open up cesium. You can choose anywhere in the world. A good rule of thumb is any major US city has 3D data. And this 3D data comes from our good old friends at Google. It's the same data set. So if you see something in Google Maps and it's 3D, well, you can actually import it right here. So here, for this little vignette, I brought in, what is this? Miami? Yeah, exactly. And using that as a skyline. But just like Google Maps, the closer you get, the resolution will kick in. It'll get a little bit better because to do context model, actually really, really difficult and very expensive. So for the sake of performance, it'll be kind of blocky unless you get closer. You can even override these settings and make it even higher res. Right now I have it like at a lowish res just so, sake of performance. But if I drop this down to like 4, it's basically going to start refreshing. You see all that happening, those pop-ins. So this is huge because, textured context models, either really, really expensive or they just don't exist on the marketplace for you to buy. So now it's like we plug this in, right? The whole world is being streamed in, by the way. Although I said this is Florida, right? Look at this. I can actually fly up north and this data is going to start loading in. So that's the cool thing about
speaking of performance, it's kind of amazing to see how quickly you can move around this model, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see this, but the statistics, it's like I've got 87 million, assets in here, and I'm running at like a very nice frame rate, which is incredible. But look at this, like you can't get this fidelity elsewhere. And most architects are used to, kind of like white boxes. OpenStreetMap is like the generator of all that, and they're just boxy. You don't get anything like this elsewhere. So we've been such a huge fan of this because it's just so nice to have, and like we don't want to spend $500 to like $2,000 on like a very small area of 3D data. So yeah, very, very cool.
What's your GPU? Pedro has the right question.
What's my GPU? So this is an A6000. It's an Ada 6000. Did I say that right? Let's see. This is actually a beast of a machine. This is a crazy machine, actually. I'll give you guys proof. Yeah, 6000 Ada, and then
And while you're saying that, I'll say, I mean, I saw D5 being used on not a beast of a computer last week, and it was it seems so lightweight, I guess is how I would describe it. Like it just seems like it doesn't take that much.
Yeah. Yeah. Like so at KPF, because of the pandemic, we actually switched to laptops. Like everyone's got a laptop. We actually moved from the desktop workflow to laptops because people would either, work from home or, hybrid, and nobody's going to lug the desktops over. So our laptops, the base spec is depending on, who you are, whether you're like admin, it's either an A3000 or an A4000, and still plenty of headroom to run, our models. And like, if you've ever seen a KPF project, they're all master plan scale, and we're able to run this on that lower spec. Then there's definitely like the mainstream cards. And I get this question a lot, like, oh, what would you use? My personal setup, because I've got like a work machine and a personal machine. I've got a 5080, and that's probably overkill for most projects. I think if you're just starting out with D5, you probably want something like say like 5070 Ti. I don't recommend an older generation at this point just because they're hard to find. You're better off just like finding a 5000 series. And yeah, you want to go team green in general with NVIDIA because they use, ray tracing DLSS 4. And for those that don't know, it's actually just like free frame rates. So let me bring so I don't know if anyone can see that, but here I've got, 84 million faces. I'm running at 34 frames per second. So what DLSS 4 will do is, let me close it. Right now, I'm running at 16. So it's a little bit heavier, right? But once I turn it on, it uses AI to actually interpolate frames, and it's basically doubling my frame rate just in one click. So that's why you want to go, team green there, because you've got that there. But again, this is a massive scene. That's kind of why I built this. I want to use a lot of foliage, a lot of, water, context, just kind of push it, and it's still super good. And I saw Richard was asking about Mac. Not available for Mac yet, literally because of like what I was talking about with ray tracing, and it's also an issue of DirectX 12 versus whatever the Mac thing is. I'm not a Mac guy, so I don't know, but that's the issue.
You mean the
maybe
graphics
someday,
card
but
isn't
not now.
available, or you mean like D5 isn't available on Macs?
D5.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, so strictly Windows for now.
What's that called?
Um,
Boot camp that we used to do for
Yeah, and like parallels, and like the problem was like you're having your system specs, so that's definitely an issue. But for a large scene to run, at over 30 frames per second, like that's a huge win, because these projects are just massive for us. There's basically like a whole island, right? And then it's got the whole world over here. So there's a lot in this scene, and I can go from this super large macro scale all the way down to the little project over here, and it takes no time to do that. The other really nice thing that our Enscape to D5 users liked is these scenes here. What's nice is they're not just like stupid camera positions, they're not like hotspots. This will actually remember layer visibility, so whether or not layers on, object visibility, and your atmosphere settings. So I could actually go here, and this is how I actually like to work when I'm like riffing on ideas. I can just go grab a different HDRI, see what that looks like, save that, and now I can switch and I can say, hey, what does it look like when it's sunset? What does it look like when it's a sunny day? And so now I can just generate all these different variations, or I can use AI to kind of generate more ideas. Like I'll give you another example. Like over here, I was playing with different time of days, just for like, should we go with golden hour, or should we go with sunny day? And then here I was like, oh, what happens if we add more boats? And like my prompt was literally like, add more boats. And then I could just see that without having to fly around and place these boats manually, and then realize, maybe that wasn't the greatest idea. And then here, since I have
speaking
it
of
up,
3 or 4 word prompts, add more
yeah,
boats.
exactly. Yeah. So another very popular thing with like AI is, and you were kind of mentioning this idea of like text or prompt expanders. And so although I'm using a short prompt, this tool has a way for you to expand the text, so it's actually much longer and smarter. So that's why I like that a lot. So So this is another example, if I want to just test ideas, I said, add a couple walking on the pier in here, we've got that option, and then I can upscale it and then see it with a different time of day. So again, now I'm like, oh, okay, this is probably the move. Then I'd hop into D5 and, do those steps instead of manually doing it. So pretty cool. And then just to clarify, because Alan said D5 Lite is coming soon, will support Mac. Yeah, so that's great.
Oh, that's cool. And then yeah, xFigura would be more for small, quick edits. Seems like it. Yeah, you're using it for like iteration.
Yeah. And, so they're just a platform, but it is just Nano Banana. It's just we're using it hosted there, for a variety of reasons. But yeah, Nano Banana is great for these like small edits of like changing the time of day. And like you could definitely do that in D5, but I've noticed like the perfectionists, as we were saying earlier, will just sit there and just keep tweaking settings for like way too long and get a little bit lost experimenting. I find with, Nano Banana, it's kind of like finite, like, oh, okay, these are the four options, this works, and then they just like go with that. So very cool. But yeah, I mean, for us, it's just like an easy way to test. And then just to talk about some more awesome like AI features in what's it called in D5. One thing that every designer deals with is you've got a client and they're like, hey, I've got this like very specific material that I need on the walls here. So in the 2.11 update, we got this awesome thing called Material Snap. So I'm just in the material library. I hit AI Material Snap, and it'll basically look at an image. So watch this. So I'm going to upload an image of mine. Let's say this is a spec, and this actually happened. So this is real. Um, the spec right here, and it's going to load that in. And now I want it to be this wood. So it's going to look at the image. It's going to segment it, basically understand what's going on there, and then I get to do a selection area. So I'm just going to select that, and I'm just going to add these boards. Let me just minus that. Oh no. Oops. Okay, perfect. Great. So I want it to generate this material. So instead of turning into an ArcViz artist and actually sitting there and like photoshopping this to try and align the boards with the actual perspective and everything, D5 will turn this image into a material, and then it'll also recommend materials from the asset library. So that's huge.
Wow.
So while that's loading, let me just look at the chat. Yeah, Layla, I know Alan asked, but there's this great tool. It's called the section box. We plop that on the existing condition, and then we say, hey, only cut the cesium layer and don't cut our buildings layer. So we put the architecture on one layer, and then that way they don't intersect. So here you go. This is that material we were just looking at, and it made it seamless. It made it high res, and it's even giving me options from the D5 library. And I can literally just go here, hit apply, and it'll add it to my my little what's it called, eyedropper. And at first it might look a little weird because my UVs were bad on this model. I can hit triplanar, and this will apply a world scale. And now look at that. That's that same material we were looking at. We grabbed it from a photo and it applied it there. Like this is huge. This is like the workflow we deal with every single day. Oh, I've got this image, how do I turn it into a material? Because you don't know this like as an architect. Like we had to learn this because, back in our day, everything was harder, but like now it just does it for you. The other crazy thing is like that was, crazy enough, but we often find that people will go on websites, they'll grab like the little image chip of a sample, and they're always low res. So what D5 did was they have this actual like texture enhancer, and this is where you can upscale the texture and make it seamless. So this, as you know, like how difficult it was to do in Photoshop, you actually just detect the seams, it'll make it seamless for you, and it'll just fix the material. So
What's
architects love
amazing
this.
about these is like these are all of the it's kind of the it's like when you're looking at your budget and you're like, oh man, we're getting crushed by all these $5 or $10 purchases, right? Because they all add up at the end of the month. And that's exactly what this AI tool, like what these different AI features and tools are tackling. It's like these small bits of things that take 5 to 15 minutes for you to do that now instead of taking 5 or 15 minutes, you can literally do it in 30 seconds. And that is
Right.
crazy to me. Like that, there's so much, they're solving the right problems, right? It's the ones that usually are easy to forget because they only take 5 or 15 minutes. But the problem is that you're doing it, 5 or 10 times each time you have a project.
Yeah. And then think of how many people at the firm are working on that. So like
Yeah.
if you're wasting an hour every day, times that by like 300 people, right? That's 300 like hours, right? In one day times the project lifecycle. Like this is where it's crazy. And like to do the seamless stuff and upscaling, even most artists that like know what they're doing, still going to take you like an hour just for that. And that's not even giving you all these other maps, like the normal map, the specular roughness. So D5 is like, hey, let's actually add an AI generated texture map generator. So you upload your base map and it'll actually analyze it and give you all these texture maps. Because nobody wants to make a normal map anymore. Nobody wants to make roughness maps. Although Photoshop like has ways to do that, that's still an extra step. You have to go to Photoshop. So it's almost like we're cutting out all the photoshopping and just doing that in D5, which is sick.
Yeah, and not even doing it, just really clicking a button. It seems like
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just
And
it's
it
just
does a
happening. It's
fantastic
just
job.
happening, which is even crazier. Yeah, the barrier to entry is only getting lower. Any final questions, at least for Andy, while he's got D5 up? Any final questions for Andy on how he and his team are using that? But my goodness, I feel like you can just immediately see it's like all of these just small bits that make things. I mean, it's so much faster. The performance is pretty incredible. These small things around upscaling, around being able to add textures, around being able to get these things that you need. It's just so. Yeah, it all adds up to I think adding so much value to the workflows that you're using.
Absolutely. And I'm going to show you guys like one more super big one. Doug was asking about my YouTube channel, but I'm going to drop in my link tree in there. You can get my LinkedIn, YouTube, everything related to me. Definitely check me out. But this is my favorite one. And this is like the incredible one. It's called the AI post processor. So the idea is once you finish rendering an image, right? I'm going to double click this. I'll make it bigger. It might look a little distorted on your screen because I'm on widescreen, but I've got this. I can tell it that I want to basically do a style transfer. And the style transfer, I'm just going to switch to it, could be a different like time of day. So look at that.
Wow.
It'll apply this filter and it'll even do the actual transition of a style. So this is like a watercolor style, which we love, when it's early in the project, conceptual, we don't have the full design figured out. And these are just presets in D5. This is pen, right? Look at that. Like, look at like, it's insane. Like, it actually respects everything. Like, it's beautiful. And then this one's my like favorite. This is like realism overload where it just applies like a realistic style. But like, look at the vegetation, look at the sand, like look at all that. Like, it's really really crazy. And it's so simple to use. It's just these like little buttons right here. You click like what style you want. You can make it look like a scale model and all that. You could go realistic if you want it to look wintry or autumn. So it's kind of like your own Nano Banana in here. So I like to use both of them because they're super super useful. It's just like why not? Yeah, this is from like a past webinar I did, but I took a rendering of mine and I made it look like a scale model. So before and after. Like
Wow.
I don't even need to build models anymore, right? Um,
And he's
so
just
very very
controlling the
cool.
entire world from D5 right now.
Yes.
Pretty incredible though. Like it's here. I'll repeat what someone I was in a group demo of D5 a couple of weeks ago, and at the very end, an architect said, "I can see how pretty much any firm that's not using D5 is at a pretty serious disadvantage at this point." And it's hard not to see it in action and not think the same thing because there's just so much that it's doing. And like you said at the beginning, it sounds like it's really listening to its users. It's been a great team. I mean, for me to partner with from the growth tech standpoint, it's been an amazing team that they have on their side. And so they're just, it's great. It's great to see a product like this pop into the industry that's solving so many common issues.
Yeah, 100%. And just like I know we talked about this and like how much the D5 team actually listens, but like I'll give you guys even more examples. Like this was an issue we had with a lot of our other vendors. We'd have a piece of feedback and it would go years unanswered. And Alan from the D5 team is like, well, we'll pitch some feedback. Like, hey, it'd be really nice if we could do this. And now like check this out. So we do a lot of diagramming, right? And now we have the ability to do like isometric diagrams. So now um, I can actually go in and create an isometric. I don't know why my shadows are acting funny. Maybe I have to update my graphic driver, but this was like a piece of feedback we had. We also had this one of like aligning the camera to a surface. And look at this. Now we basically have elevations that we can render out in directly in D5. And we could do the same thing with like generating floor plans, like rendered floor plans and everything, because that's a whole nother thing. It's like, oh, we don't really have the time to like, draw everything. So I can go in and literally with a simple section plane tool, I can cut a section. Let me find the project wherever it went. Somewhere.
Just it's
It's
lost on
actually
the beach.
it's hiding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went took a swim.
Too many
Yeah,
margaritas.
watch this. I can grab this second plane. I can plop this here, and now look at that. I can go in, and if I hit T on my keyboard, I can actually do like a top down. It also does poche, built-in poche and everything. So it's just like all these like workflows that we deal with on a daily basis. Like they just like go and add it, so we don't have to deal with it. So really really appreciate them just like listening and all that. That's been huge for the firm.
Amazing. Andy, thank you so much. Everyone, one, thanks to Andy for sharing so much and how KPF is doing this, how they're using D5. To all of you here, I dropped in a link. Like go download D5. You get a free trial when you jump in, and you can start testing this for yourself today. Go follow Andy's YouTube channel. Go check him out. You'll be hearing from me and the D5 team with the recording of this too, so that you can take another watch of it. You can share it with your team. But thank you so much, Andy. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And just as a free bonus for like anyone who attended, I wrote a whole guide on how to use Nano Banana, like to help with prompting. So be sure to download that. Again, it's free. Just trying to get the knowledge out there because it's just like this stuff is crazy. It's just every week. So I'm glad you guys invited me and everything to talk about this, but definitely have it on your radar.
That's awesome. Yeah, go download the free Nano Banana prompt. I'll be sure to share that with the group too. Andy, thank you so much. D5 Render, thank you so much. Everyone, go try them out, and we'll be in touch.
Definitely. All
All
right,
right.
thank you everybody.
Yeah.
Good one.